Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was banished from Konoha and became Kumogakure's Black Flash, Shoten Naruto x Yugito, Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up. And subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. Damn it. A small 6-year-old blonde-haired boy cursed as he was being chased by a group of villagers. The reason for this was due to the boy's constant pranks he would play on the village in order to get attention. For years he would try to get the attention of others. Why, you ask? It was because on his birthday the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked Konoha. The Yondaime Hokage Minato Namakazi was able to defeat the nine-tailed beast and sealed inside Naruto's twin sister Yui Namakazi. Somehow both Minato and Kushina both survived. Yui was seen as the savior of Konoha. All seemed to be well except for the fact that Naruto's parents didn't really look after Naruto, instead they both put all of their attention on Yui. They started to training her about 2 whole years before they even considered teaching Naruto anything. Yui was a natural at ninjutsu. She was already in the academy by the time she was 5 and was considered just a big genius as her dad was when he was a genin. For the last few years people would address Naruto as the Yondaime's son or Yui-sama's niece-san. They wouldn't call Naruto by his name and he started feeling left out and unimportant. Naruto soon after started his pranking on the people of Konoha and because of that was seen as a disgrace by many people who thought, how could the son of the noble Yondaime Hokage play such pranks? Many people gave him cold glares. And thought that the small boy was somehow the Kyuubi's reincarnation that was sullying the name of their beloved Hokage. Hence most of the villagers refused to even see the small blonde boy as the son of the Yondaime. Now a few Chunins joined the mob and soon Naruto was unable to escape as the Chunin grabbed him and pinned him on the wall before harshly punching him. Today we restore the honor of the Yondaime. One of the men in the mob yelled as other roared in agreement. Why are you doing this? Naruto cried as he was being restrained. Don't worry, we won't kill you, demon, but the shame you bring to the Yondaime ends today. One of the Chunin knocked the small blonde out. Soon some Junin came to the mob. One of the Chunin handed Naruto to one of them and said, you know what must be done. Take him out of the village and dump him somewhere where he can't be found. The Junin that now held Naruto nodded in agreement. He ran away leaving Konoha and ran at a very fast pace. Soon he came across a river into which he tossed little Naruto and then turned back and ran away. Back in Konoha his so-called family didn't even notice that he was missing and went on with their lives, which revolved around their daughter who, despite knowing her brother was missing, didn't speak up as she thought it was one of his usual pranks. The unconscious Naruto started flowing in the direction of the flow of water. To somewhere, where Konoha wouldn't bother him. With a team of Kumo nin. Alright then, that completes the mission, said Darui. He was a tanned man with white hair that covered one of his eyes. He had a tattoo for black lightning on his arm. The other 2 Chunin with him nodded and were about to leave when one of the Chunins noticed something in the river that was moving towards the waterfall. Looking at it closely he noticed that it was a small boy. He immediately rushed towards the boy and pulled him it. The boy was none other than Naruto, who was now shivering because of the cold and him being wet to the bone. The second Chunin, looking at the kid's reaction, immediately used a small fire jutsu to heat the boy up. And to dry his clothes. Soon Naruto stopped shivering and gingerly opened his eyes to see 2 concerned-looking Chunins and 1 bored Jonin. He quickly looked around his surroundings and realized that he must have been thrown somewhere in the water and was now miles away from Konoha. He looked down dejectedly and unknowingly channeled chakra into the ground that caused a few small crystals to emerge, something that the Kumo nin didn't miss. Darui then looked interested and asked, Oi kid, what's your name? My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namakazi. Naruto quietly replied as he waited for them to lash out and kill him. You are the Hokage's son, what are you doing in a place like this? Asked Darui, who was now shocked. My parents ignore me for my sister. They haven't even started training me and hardly pay attention to me. The villagers all don't even know my name. So I started playing pranks to get attention. The village ninjas caught me yesterday and threw me into that river, saying that they are restoring the Hokage's reputation. Naruto was now crying openly. He had never shown his emotions in the village, but today he couldn't control himself. Darui was a very laid-back person and rarely became angry. So when you saw him shaking in anger at Naruto's story, you knew that the matter was beyond serious. That village, how can they do this to someone? Specifically a kid. And he has a Kekai Genka as well. And he also made my tattoo react. Boss will be interested in this. I am taking him with me back to Kumo. Darui furiously thought. So kid, what are you gonna do now? Do you want us to drop you off back to Konoha? Darui boredly asked. Naruto frantically shook his head and with desperation said, please don't take me back. My parents ignore me, the villagers hate me. Kill me but don't take me back please. Darui was now heartbroken. Just what had that wretched village done to this young boy? He immediately hugged the hysteric Naruto who was sobbing loudly. He rocked the boy a little, calming him down and said, hey shish, calm down, we won't take you back to hell hole. Do you want to come back with us to Kumogakure? I promise you will treated much better over there. Naruto didn't answer and only nodded. Darui shifted Naruto onto his back and nodded to the two Chunin, who nodded, and all three of them started jumping towards Kumo. Naruto soon couldn't control his emotions and showed his side as a kid as he cheered into the air as it felt he was flying. He was inwardly happy he was free from his shackles and was now moving to a brighter future. Darui and the Chunins didn't stop for a break and were determined to reach Kumo as soon as possible. After 2 days they finally arrived, and as soon as they signed themselves in at the gate, Darui dismissed the Chunins and himself proceeded to go to Raikage's office. He was walking in a leisured pace as Naruto was now safely in the village. As they were walking, Naruto, who had awoken when they stopped at the gate, started taking in the sights of Kumo. It was a place full of mountains that were surrounded by clouds. There weren't all that many trees, but the place in Naruto's opinion was more beautiful than Konoha. The place was lively with shinobis running on the roofs and the civilians moving around the city completing their day-to-day tasks. Naruto strangely liked the setting. Soon they entered the Raikage building, and after exchanging a few words with Mabui, the Raikage's secretary, Darui made his way and knocked on the Raikage's office after receiving a come-in. He and Naruto walked in the room. As soon as Naruto he was awestruck. The man was huge. He was very muscular and was very tall. Naruto was so awed he couldn't help but exclaim, "Whoa, he is a mountain." The exclamation caused both Darui and the Raikage to chuckle in good faith. The Raikage then turned to Darui and said, "Explain." Nodding, Darui said, "Mission was a success, all the missing nin were eliminated. This is Naruto Namakazi. We found him unconscious, and floating in a river near to us before he woke up and left with us on his own will. I was now surprised why would the son of his arch-rival would willingly leave them and join Kumo." He eyed the kid who was looking at the floor with fear evident on his face. What surprised I was that he wasn't fearing where he was. Naruto was comfortable being in Kumo, so what was he afraid of? I then eyed Darui and sent him a questioning look. Sighing, Darui placed his hand on Naruto, prompting him to look at Darui. Darui then nodded as Mabui entered the room with a stack of papers. It was then that Naruto began his story, this time telling the unedited version and revealing everything he had to live through. Near the end he broke into tears again, causing Mabui to rush and pull him into a hug. I was shaking in raw fury. How could someone favor one child over the other and then forget about the other one? And how blinded were the villagers and ninjas? Every kid plays pranks. Why did they kidnap and then dump him out in the open at the mercy of literally everything? His hatred for Konoha skyrocketed at that moment, and he decided one thing: he was going to take Naruto as his apprentice and train him personally in the ways of the shinobi. He then looked at the sniffing Naruto, who was still in Mabui's embrace, and in a tender voice spoke and said, "Naruto, would you like to join Kumo and become a shinobi here?" Naruto immediately nodded. I smiled at him, which caused Naruto to relax. I then stood up and said, "Very well then. I will draw up your paperwork to live here. Also, I will be training you personally, so you better be ready to put in a lot of hard work." Naruto nodded strongly. He had stars in his eyes. Being trained by a Kage was a still an exciting prospect for the young boy. Darui though was surprised and spoke, saying, "If that's the case, I will be training him along with you. He has the ability to use black lightning. My tattoo react when I first saw him. Also, he has a Kekai Genka." I nodded before looking interested. He then asked, "Which one?" Turning to Naruto, he said, "Naruto, imagine a rose and channel chakra into your palm." Naruto did just that, and soon a shiny black crystal rose appeared. I now had a shit-eating grin. His student had a very rare Kekai Genka and an unusually high affinity for lightning. He would grow up to be a very strong shinobi. I, however, then asked Naruto a question that would change him forever. Naruto, if we train you and you become strong, what would you do if Konoha and your family came to get you? Also, what would you do with that power? I asked. I won't forgive my family, including my godparents, ever. They don't deserve my forgiveness. And with that power, I will protect Kumogakure from any and everything. I will become the ultimate protector and will then take your seat as the Godwime Raikage. Naruto finished with a grin. I chuckled. The boy had given a better answer than he had expected. Alright then, the only thing left now is to decide where you will be staying. I said. I would like to adopt him as my son. Mabui immediately replied, causing Darui and I to raise their eyes amusedly as Naruto looked at her in hope. Why you would really adopt me? Naruto shakily asked. I would if you want me to. Naruto. Would you like to be my Sochi? Mabui asked in a tender voice. Kachan. Naruto shouted as he lunged into the open arms of Mabui. Well, that settles everything. Mabui, you can take the rest of the day of take Naruto home and get some shopping done. I will draw up the necessary paperwork. I said as Mabui nodded thankfully and left with Naruto in her arms. As soon as she left the room, I activated the privacy seals before smashing his table into smithereens. Those Fu King bastards, how dare they do something like that to a child? He growled. Darui nodded and said, well, they will soon see what they missed out on. He is gifted. You saw how perfectly he manipulated his Shoten without any previous manipulation exercise. Also, his lightning affinity is strong. I felt a good jolt when I saw him. We may have someone with the Shadime's power. I chuckled evilly. He would turn Naruto into a freakishly strong shinobi, and when the time came, Konoha would pay for its mistake. Meanwhile, in Konoha, Yui Namakazi was a worried girl. Her brother had been missing for 2 whole days now. She rushed into her dad's office where her father, mother, godparents, and the 3rd Hokage were discussing something. Yui, what's wrong, baby? Asked Kushina as she walked over and scooped her daughter into her lap. It's Naruto. I haven't seen him for 2 days now. He isn't home and hasn't done any pranks since his last one last week. She urgently said. Before anyone could reply, the Sandame shouted, what? Anbu, mobilize 3 tracking teams and bring back my grandson. After a chorus of highs, the Anbus in the building left, leaving a fuming Sandame and 4 confused others. Why are you worried, Hiruzen? It will be one of his pranks. Don't worry, they will be back soon. Minato nonchalantly said. A furious Hiruzen turned to Minato and snarled, are you kidding me? Your son has been missing for 3 days and that is what you have to say? He does it all the time, sensei. I always reprimand him and tell him to be like Yui-chan, but he never listens. Tsunade said, trying to defuse the situation. She is right, sensei. I mean, he is hardly social with any of us and always bugs Yui-chan's training. He is just a troublemaker. I am sure there is nothing to worry about. Jiraiya added. I will be sure to punish him when he returns home. I will completely remove his prankster tendencies. Databane. Kushina said. It was after this that Hiruzen completely lost it. He was already worried about Naruto's safety after he heard murmurs in the crowd. And the insolence of the idiots in front of him was making it all the much worse. So he finally shouted. Are you kidding me? The kid only pranked your sorry asses so that he could gain your attention. Did you ever even talk to him? Try and get to know him? Did you ever even think about training him? Don't give me the Yui excuse. You could have made a shadow clone for him. Mark my words, if there was anything to happen to my surrogate grandson, there will be hell to pay. Hiruzen finished, shocking everyone present. Now when they thought about it, they realized that Hiruzen's words carried the truth. None of the 5 mentioned knew anything about Naruto. His likes, dislikes, his dream, his talent, everything was an uncharted plane for them. All 4 of the other adults looked down in shame when they realized that they had indeed neglected a 6-year-old from his birth. However, they decided to make it up to him as soon as he came back and then start training him seriously. However, all their plans were dashed to the ground when the Anbu commander reappeared and said, Hokage-sama, Kushina-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama and Sandame-sama, Naruto Namakazi is not in the village. According to the talk in the street, some Konoha nin kidnapped him and dumped him far away from the village because they felt that he was sullying your name. As soon as he finished, a potent, very potent killing intent filled the room and was felt by half the village. It was one that could have matched the Kyuubi on its day. The one emitting the killing intent was none other than the Sandame. Everyone except Minato was shaking under the pressure. Hiruzen then calmly said, "Am I to believe that the Anbu stationed by me to watch over Naruto were defeated?" The commander began to sweat under the pressure as he replied, "No sir, we had a large number of ATS rank missions and the ANBUs were outperforming them. I see well your next mission will to catch every single bastard involved in the kidnapping before sending them to Ibiki. Tell him that I give both him and Anko a free rein into doing whatever they like on them." Hiruzen calmly said as he stopped releasing his intent. When the Anbu left, the whole room was quiet, no one said a thing. Until Minato spoke and, "Hiruzen but was cut of when Hiruzen spoke and said, "It's Sarutobi Dono for you Hokage-sama. I may not publicly announce you as an enemy as that will be bad for the village, but privately we aren't friends anymore and perhaps never will be." Next to speak was Jiraiya, who tried and said, "I am sorry, Senator." But he too was interrupted by Hiruzen, who said, "There is no need to apologize to me. The way you three turned out was a failure on my part. God, I should have taken Naruto as an apprentice when we talked and he told me everything. It would have been nice to have at least one student who wasn't a complete failure as a human being. I resign my post as an advisor, Hokage-sama, and I shall be taking my leave." He stood and left, leaving 4 hurt shinobi and 1 passed out academy student behind. All of them having the same thoughts. Please be safe, Naruto. It had been a day and Naruto was walking down the street getting used to his new home. As he was walking, he saw a mob entering a dark alley of the village. Curious, he decided to follow and saw that one of the men had thrown a girl around his age into the wall. She had her clothes ripped and was on the ground. He then saw a man bend down and move closer to her. Immediately connecting the dots, Naruto threw a blunt kunai at the monk's head, causing the whole mob to turn and look at him. Glaring at them, Naruto asked, "What the hell are you doing? She is just a kid." "She isn't a kid, she is a demon. Instead of stopping us, you should be helping us torture her, kid," a random man said. "And how is she a demon?" Naruto exasperatedly asked. "She has the 2-tailed Biju sealed inside her and that makes her a demon," another woman screeched. Sighing, Naruto said, "All right, break it up and go home. I am the student of the Raikage. If you don't leave this instant, I will report this incident to him." The people paled at the thought of being confronted by the Raikage and grumbled before about demons and demon lovers before leaving. Naruto then made way to the girl who was cowering and desperately trying to cover herself up. "DDD, don't hit me," she said as she felt Naruto come up to her. He sighed, he knew this feeling. It was worse for her because of her gender and almost being raped. Naruto then quickly removed his jacket and wrapped it around the girl, who at first stiffened at his touch but then relaxed. He then brought her into a hug. As soon as he hugged her, she felt all of her pent-up emotions explode and she started sobbing. Naruto, on the other hand, was worried. He didn't know what to do as the only hug he had ever gotten was by Mabui, and that to yesterday. Naruto then let his instincts take over and tried his best to calm the crying girl in his arms. He slowly began rocking her and rubbing her back in a soothing manner as he let the girl cry on his shoulders. This was the scene that the Raikage walked in on. By the time he had arrived, the girl had already fallen asleep and was clutching Naruto like a lifeline. Sighing, Naruto stood up and shifted the girl so that he was giving her a piggyback ride. Turning to the Raikage, he said, "I am taking her to my place. She needs someone with her today." I nodded and then instructed 2 of his Volt to escort both the kids to Mabui's apartment. Soon they made it to the apartment where Mabui was waiting. After explaining everything to her, she nodded and let Naruto carry the girl to his room. Naruto then laid her on his bed and was about to leave when he saw that the girl was still holding on to his hand and didn't seem to want to let go. Naruto then sighed and got on the bed himself. He then wrapped an arm around the girl, giving her extra warmth. She unknowingly purred and snuggled into him. Naruto was a little red before he drifted off to sleep. Mabui looked on with a small smile on her face. "You know they will be perfect for each other, right?" From the shadows a smiling eye appeared and said, "You got that right. Both have painful pasts and can understand pain. This will be interesting to say the least." Nodding, the 2 of them left, closing the door, letting the 2 kids sleep. The next morning when Naruto woke up, the first thing he heard was purring. "Is there a cat on me?" he thought before opening his eyes and seeing the girl from last night snuggling into his chest. He blushed a bit before he smiled at the serene look on the girl's face. Half an hour later, the girl woke up and started looking around before her eyes fell on a smiling Naruto. She felt her cheeks heat up before she remembered how Naruto had helped her yesterday. Thank you for yesterday, Mr. Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, what's your name? Naruto asked back in a kind voice. Ni Yugito. The girl replied. Hey, will you be my friend? I am new in the village and don't know many people. Naruto excitedly asked. Are you sure people don't like me here? Yugito replied in a whisper. Oh, don't worry, they are idiots who don't understand the difference between a kunai and seal. Naruto answered with a wave of his hand. Yugito then hugged him tightly as she whispered a thank you. Soon Mabui arrived and reminded them both of their respective training times. Both jumped up and rushed to get ready. Before they left, Mabui informed them that I had given the green light for Yugito to stay here. Both kids smiled before rushing to their respective training grounds. Naruto to training 7 and Yugito was to go to a sushi shop where her sensei would collect her and teach her how to use her biju. As they both started their training, they had one thought. I will be strong enough to protect my precious ones. With the determination to succeed locked in, they began their training. Time skip 6 years. Asterisk. Naruto was standing on the Raikage mountain and was overlooking the whole village. This was his favorite spot in the entire village. He would come here and automatically his heart would be at peace. As he stood there, he couldn't help but feel excited, as tomorrow he would finally be a genin and would take the first step to his dream of succeeding the eye and becoming the Godwime Raikage. As he overlooked the village, he couldn't help but reminiscence on his 6 years at Kumo. He smiled as he remembered his training and his relationship with Yugito, which had grown past friendship and had become an intimate one. Over the years he had become very proficient in taijutsu, and had become a kenjutsu master thanks to his masters being among the best in the elemental nations, and the unique Uzumaki style that he had found was the best in the elemental nations. He had completed 3 stages of manipulation for all 3 of his elements and had 25 jutsus for each of them. His control over his shoten had increased dramatically and he had created nearly 55 jutsus for it. His training with Black Lightning was the toughest and he had only managed up to 2 stages of its manipulation, but that alone, according to his sensei Darui, was nothing short of amazing given his age. However, the most notable of his skills was Fuinjutsu. The art seemed to come to as naturally as breathing. He had started it during the 2nd year at Kumo and had instantly come to love. Thanks to the Kage Bunshin that he had stolen from his old village while leaving, he had in just over a month gone through all the Fuinjutsu material the village had. It disappointed him as it only made him a level 3 master. Though all of that changed when he was tasked to go with Darui and I's brother B to the ruins of Whirlpool. Normally the land was off limits considering the gigantic whirlpools that surrounded it. But seeing that he was the blood son of the former princess of the Whirlpool, the Whirlpools recognized his Uswanki blood and let him and the 2 Jonins with him enter. After some exploration they came across something that looked like a royal castle. Naruto splattered his blood on the entrance, which accepted his royal blood and let him enter. There he was surprised to find that nearly they had preserved all of their seals and their jutsus. Naruto, while exploring, found a summoning contract of the sea serpents. As soon as he signed it, he was transported to the land of the sea serpents, also known as Mount Atlantis. There the boss summon questioned him and checked if he really was an Uzumaki before accepting him as a summoner. As he was the latest summoner, he had received the blade of the last Uzukage, the Yukihira. It was a pearly white blade that exhaled power. He had also received the 5 weather kenjutsu style that had been created by the Uzumakis. After that he was transported back to the land of the Whirlpool where a worried Darui was waiting for him. He explained the situation to both of the Jonin, who then nodded. Naruto then summoned a sea serpent and had him take all of the seals, jutsus, and weapons from here to Mount Atlantis. There they would be protected and he would learn them slowly. The serpent nodded before taking them away. Both the Jonin understood why he did that. It was simply because they were clan secrets and he had every right to protect them from outsiders. After getting the material, Naruto was set. He had dived into the world of both sealing and kenjutsu, and thanks to the shadow clones had become a level 3 kenjutsu master and a level 10 seals master. Which was the final level in seals. He still had 2 levels to complete before he was recognized as a Kenjutsu master by Uzumaki standard, but otherwise he could give most Jonins more than a run for their money. I and the council were glad to have a seals master with them. The seals that Naruto had created were ingenious and strengthened nearly every part of the village. In the end, it was decided that Naruto would reform the Uzumaki clan when he became older, to which he happily agreed. Overall, Naruto after his 6 years was a solid low Jonin level shinobi. Yugito over the last 6 years had slouched. She had trained very hard and had mastered her Biju completely. She had also become very proficient in Kenjutsu and Taijutsu thanks to Killer Bee teaching her. She had also gained a fair number of fire and water jutsu in her arsenal. She in her two-tailed state was at low Jonin level but couldn't beat Naruto because of his expertise in seals. Over the years the village had accepted Yugito after their resident seal master had explained them of how her seal worked. Needless to say, most of the people and shinobi were ashamed of themselves for not seeing the difference between a kunai and a scroll. They apologized profusely, to which Yugito simply stated that everything was water under the bridge and that she hated no one. Currently Naruto was thinking about who would be placed in his genin team. He was really hoping he would have Yugito on his team. She was strong and someone who Naruto had come to love. He had tried to rip the information of his surrogate uncle and mother, but both of them didn't budge, making the young blonde Uzumaki grumble in annoyance. Sighing, Naruto shushined and appeared in his home, where he found Yugito waiting for him. As soon as he appeared, she said, "Where were you? I was getting worried." "Oh, just on the Raikage monument. I was looking back on the years. You know, training and stuff. And I realized one very important thing," Naruto said with a smile. "Oh, and what was that?" Yugito curiously asked. Naruto answered by snaking his hands around her waist and pulling her closer before giving her a soft kiss. He then said, "That I made the best decision of my life when I decided to come here with Darui instead of having them return me to Konoha. The last 6 years have been the best freaking years of my life. I wouldn't exchange it for anything in the world." Yugito smiled and kissed him before saying, "I am glad you think that way. Now let's go and watch a movie before sleeping. We have team assignments tomorrow." Naruto just smiled and nodded as he let her decide the movie to watch. Meanwhile in Konaha, the village had continued to function in a normal way with no outward feeling of tension. However, one family was a direct target of the tension. The Namakazi family had been hit very hard after they realized the depth of their actions towards Naruto. Minato had sent team after team to search for his son, but to no avail. Eventually, after a year, he had stopped sending the teams because of the council and only held on to a hope that one day his son would return to their family. Yui had upped her training even more. She felt responsible for what happened to her brother and had made it her life goal to one day find him and bring him back to the village and set things right with him. Jiraiya and Tsunade had been hit hard by Naruto's leaving. The look of pure and unadulterated anger and disappointment on the look of their father figure made them ashamed of themselves. Tsunade left the village as she felt she had betrayed the will of fire and stated she wouldn't return until news on Naruto was found. Jiraiya had devoted himself and his spy network to try and find Naruto, but he had no success. Wherever Naruto was or whoever he was with was damn good at staying off the grid. Kushina was hit the hardest. She didn't know of how she treated Naruto until Hiruzen's outburst. It made her realize how she wronged her blood. Uzumakis were known to be loyal to their family, but she had spit on that belief after how she acted toward her son. For the first few months she had locked herself in her son's room wallowing in self-pity. The only reason she came out was because her best friend Makoto convinced her that the best thing right now was to be strong for Yui and hope Naruto was found. However, even after 6 years there was no sign of him, and slowly her hope was turning into despair. Hiruzen was the only one who was relaxed. He had a gut feeling that Naruto was alive and was glad that he was out of the village. Over the years the locals had understood the boy's reasoning and berated themselves for being so stubby blunt. But nothing could be changed. Yui after her training had managed to learn most of her dad's jutsus, including the Rasengan. She had also mastered his hummingbird taijutsu. She had inherited her mother's chakra chains and was efficient in their use. She had managed to reach up to a one-tailed state in Kyuubi's chakra. She was at mid to high Chunin level. However, one thing was certain, none of them would see the great maelstrom was on course to hit them head-on in the very near future. Team 8 will be Samui Karui Omoi, your sensei will be Kurabi Yatsuki. Team 9 will consist of Naruto Uzumaki, ni Yugito and Atsui, your sensei will be Darui. That's all I want you to know, that I am very proud of all of you. It's your time now, go and make Kumo proud. The head teacher finished as the students grinned and started waiting for their senseis to arrive. Naruto grinned, he was happy to be in the same team as his girlfriend and one of his best friends. Atsui was Samui's brother and was a polar opposite. Where she was always calm and collected, Atsui in kind words could only be described as an active volcano-headed person. But that was what Naruto liked about him. Naruto was balanced person, he could be both hot-headed and cool. In his opinion, his team was perfect. Yugito was a calm person who only got angry when other girls threw themselves at him. Not the girls who genuinely felt something for him, but fangirls. Naruto the balanced type, he could perform in nearly every situation, and Atsui the one made for a head-to-head collision. He then moved to sit next to Yugito, who immediately placed her head on his shoulders as the class sighed in dismay. Most of the girls, because in their opinion Naruto was the best guy in their age group. While most of the guys because Yugito was among the most beautiful girls in their generation. It was a match of heaven and their fans could only watch on sadly. One by one sensei came and collected their teams until only Team 9 was left. Naruto knew there would be no peace and quiet if Atsui was awake, subtly cast a genjutsu on him that made him go to sleep. As they waited, Naruto and Yugito basked in each other's warmth and comfort, ultimately leading for the poor girl to fall asleep. Naruto smiled before he let Yugito get more comfortable as he wrapped an arm around her, bringing her closer. This was the scene that Darui walked in on when he entered the room an hour later and looked on blankly. Naruto looked at him and started using his fingers to make a few signs. Hi sensei. Looks like you are finally here, but everyone's asleep. It's too dull. I am not in a mood to wake you guys up. Hey, so does that mean we pass the secondary test? How do you know about that? I am the Raikage's student, it's obvious I know more than just a normal academy graduate. Then it's dull and defeats the purpose. You guys should head home. Tell your teammates to meet me in training ground 10 tomorrow at 7. With that, Darui left, leaving his genin in the class. Naruto then quickly wrote what his sensei said and made a clone. He used it to keep the note in front of Atsui. Naruto then picked Yugito up in a bridal carry before disappearing in a shushin while dispelling his genjutsu. Atsui woke up with a start before reading Naruto's letter and running of home, all the while shouting that he would have his revenge. The next morning, Team 9 were waiting in their training ground by having a three-way spar. Crystal release. Angelic mirrors of heaven. Naruto shouted as he created a dome made of crystal that surrounded both Atsui and Yugito. Hoot, any ideas, Yugito? Atsui asked. Not in the slightest, this is one of move of his I can't break. Yugito replied worriedly. Sea Serpent Barrage. Naruto shouted as several Narutos flew out of the mirrors and hit the trapped genin, making them lose. Naruto then cancelled the jutsu and looked at the other two with a smirk on his face. So you lost again? Naruto said in a smug tone. It's that stupid jutsu of yours, it's impossible to break. Hoot. Atsui yelled out. Yugito just sighed before she stood up and went here to Naruto before kissing him and saying, damn, why can't I beat you? Because I am awesome. Naruto said with a smile as he rubbed his forehead with hers. It was then that Darui appeared and said, I see you have been sparing. Very good, let's go get our missions from the Raikage before I give you all personalized training. The three genin nodded and made their way to the Raikage office. After a quick greeting from Mabui and her fussing a little over Naruto, Team 9 entered the room. I looked up and smiled before saying, good morning Team 9, are you here for a mission? Yes we are, boss. Darui answered. Well, there are several D-rank missions here, which one do you want? I asked as he skimmed through missions. Oh pish posh, give us all the D ranks you have, we will have them done by 7 p.m. Naruto confidently claimed. You seem confident, fine then let's see if you can back that up. Here are 100 D ranks. I said as he handed Darui a scroll that had the missions. Darui wordlessly nodded and let the trio out. When they left the office, Atsui shouted and said, Hot, why did you do that? Now there will be no personalized training. Naruto grinned at the question before snatching the scroll from Daru's hands. He then made a cross sign and created 400 cage buncheons. Then he hanged them to make exactly 100 Team 9's. Naruto threw the scroll at one hang Darui and said, "Perform all these missions by 7 p.m. Get to it." His clones nodded before they ran of leaving a dumbfounded Team 9 behind. Darui then rubbed his temples before saying, "When I think you are done, you go and do something even more amazing. I thought your limit was 200. How did the other 100 come? A chakra storage seal. I had B. Nissan fill it up for me. I just used that chakra to supply me the 300 clones. Now they can work and we can train all day." Naruto said gleefully. Yugito face palmed and said, "Why didn't I think of that? It was so simple." "Hot. You are a genius, Naruto," Atsui shouted. Darui then led his team back to the training ground before creating 2 lightning clones and sending Yugito and Atsui with them before he himself focused on Naruto. With Yugito. Asterisk. Alright Yugito, we know of your proficiency in Kaden Jutsu, Taijutsu and using your Biju. I think it is high time we learned of your secondary affinity. Darui said as handed Yugito a chakra paper and asked her to channel her chakra into it. Nodding, Yugito channeled her chakra into the paper, causing it to wrinkle. Nodding, Darui said, "Well, your secondary affinity is lightning. I want you to take a leaf and try wrinkling it with your chakra. We will first do 2 manipulation exercises before moving on to jutsus. Now begin." Yugito excitedly took a leaf and started her training as she looked forward to master another element. With Atsui. Asterisk. Well, Atsui despite having 2 different elements, you don't really have all that many jutsus. So here is a list of 10 Kaden Jutsu and 10 Suiten Jutsu. Start practicing them and if you need any help let me know. Darui said as Atsui nodded before he started working. With Naruto. Asterisk. Okay, my young protege, what do you want to work on? Asked Darui. Well, sensei, I have just completed my new original jutsu and wanted to ask for your opinion on it. Naruto said with a grin. Hey, show me. Darui said with a slight interest. Naruto first looked at the sky before going through hand signs and saying, "Ninja art, hidden cloud creation." As soon as he finished, the area he was on had clouds in its opposite part in the sky. Naruto then began controlling his lightning chakra and soon the white clouds began to darken. Darui widened his eyes and he immediately created a barrier around the field. Naruto then made a ram sign and shouted, "Raiden Kirin." A gigantic lightning dragon left the sky before it came crashing into the ground, almost completely destroying that part of the training field. The force of the explosion was enough to send Darui flying. After everything settled down, Darui got up and walked over to the grinning blonde idiot and smacked him on the head. What the hell were you thinking when you used an S-rank jutsu, and why are you not even slightly winded? Well, you see, I didn't think that it would be an S-rank jutsu. And 2, since it's pure manipulation and uses natural lightning, the one created by the clouds. Because of that, it uses very little chakra. Naruto explained the jutsu to his sensei, who was staring at him dumbfoundedly. He knew Naruto was a prodigy, but the thought process required to create a move and then the skill required to pull it off were absurdly high. If only Konoha knew what they missed out on. He is already low Jonin level. I can see why boss has set his sights on him as his successor as the Raikage. Heck, he even knows the Raiden no Yoroi. Darui thought before he looked at a sheepish Naruto. Well done, Naruto, that move was amazing. We will add it to the jutsu inventory today under your name. Also, for the rest of the day I want you to practice your black lightning and learn this new jutsu. Darui congratulated Naruto before he handed Naruto a scroll that read, Lightning Release, Black Panther Jutsu. Nodding, Naruto created 100 clones and said, "Alright boys, 20 on chakra control, 20 on Fuinjutsu, 20 on Kenjutsu start the 4th season, 20 on Taijutsu start with the intermediate defensive katas. And finally 20 on this new jutsu. And before you ask, I am going to go running around the village. Sensei, can you keep an eye on them?" Darui sighed and nodded. This training method was only applicable to him because of his Uzumaki healing and reserves. And he took full advantage of that fact. Naruto then proceeded to increase his resistance seals from level 4 to level 5. He immediately felt himself fall to the ground. He considered reverting back to level 4 but pushed the thought out of his mind. He needed to be strong not only for himself but also for Yugito and Kumo. Also, he was the to-be Goto Amy Raikage, he couldn't let something like a little resistance affect him. He pushed himself up and started running. From afar, Darui watched with a look of admiration. He knew his student would one day be one of the strongest shinobi in the entire world. Time skip several hours later at 7 p.m. Asterisk. Alright IGG, here are the reports for the 100D ranks. All done. Now can we get a C rank mission soon? Naruto asked. Sure, you will get 3 C ranks. 1 document delivery to the daimyo, 1 mission to take out bandits at Raiden village. And finally there is a mission by a bridge builder for an escort. From the request it seems that he has hired a team from Konaha as well. So Naruto, will you take it? I asked, wanting to know whether his surrogate nephew would be willing to face his old village. Naruto in response frowned a bit before he smiled brightly and said, Don't worry Gigi. The only person I even remotely miss from that village is the Sandame. For me Kumo is my home and Udarui-sensei, B-Nissan his team, Kachan, Yugito and Atsui my family. Don't worry, I won't go back. I smiled at the boy before signaling for the team to leave. As they left the office, Darui turned to his team and said, Tomorrow at 10 am. West Gate. We will first perform the bandit extermination, then deliver the document before meeting up with the Wave client. Remember to pack for at least 1 month and a half. The genin nodded before they all left towards their home. The next morning Team 9 had gathered on the West Gate and had now left the village to make a week-long journey to terminate the bandits that had laid siege on Raiden village. It was a week's run and the team finally arrived. View from the trees, Darui said. So far we have little information on the condition of the village. It would be best if we send a recon team first. Naruto, use your shadow clones. Nodding, Naruto created 3 shadow clones and had them henge into small animals before sending them into the small village. It was around 20 minutes later that the clones had dispelled themselves and Naruto had gained their memories. Looking at his team he said, Female hostages in those tents over there. Most of the bandits are sleeping, although their leader is one of the former 7 swordsmen of the mist, Raiga. Well, that complicates a lot of things. Yugito, you and Atsui go rescue the hostages. Naruto, you go and terminate the sleeping bandits. I will go and confront Raiga. Darui said in an uncharacteristically serious voice. The 3 genin nodded and left in different directions. With Yugito, Atsui and Naruto. Asterisk. Both of them didn't face any opposition and quickly released the hostages. Yugito then used her Biju's chakra to use a mega shushin that teleported all the hostages to the outskirts. She stayed there so as to protect the hostages in case anyone else attacked. Atsui on the other hand ran over to assist Naruto since there were at least 50 bandits. Naruto was a specialist in silent killing and had the mist's strongest assassination technique. Ninja art. Hidden mist jutsu. A mist covered the sleeping bandits. Naruto then created 50 clones and had them go and kill all of the bandits at once. He did feel sick but managed to push back the repulsive feelings. He was not going to put the mission at risk because he hasn't able to handle a kill. Soon he and the others met up and waited for Darui to arrive. It was almost an hour later that their sensei arrived. He looked at the 3 genin and noticed a slightly hollow look in Naruto's eyes. He sighed and said, Raiga has been killed. I have collected his swords and head. Naruto, please walk with me. He led Naruto to a clearing and said, Let it out. You didn't do anything wrong. Had they lived they would harmed and killed many more people. You protected a lot more people. Be proud of yourself. Does it get any better? Asked Naruto. Being honest, you never forget the first kill. What you should do is to enjoy killing. Don't kill unless necessary and you will be fine. Darui said as he ruffled Naruto's head. The team they proceeded to head to the daimyo estate at the lightning capital. It was a project that needed to be approved of by the daimyo. On the way to the capital they were surprised to see the daimyo's carriage. They had talked to the Gordians and it was decided that the groups would travel together. They reached the capital in 2 days and it took 2 days for the paperwork to be completed. After which Naruto used his summons to deliver the paper to the Raikage as the team then left to go and complete their final mission, which was a bodyguard mission before returning home. So sensei, does the wave have any ninjas? Yugito asked as Team 9 jumped towards the location mentioned by their client. No, they don't. The water daimyo has been ignorant and hasn't been funding anyone apart from the mist and that to support the bloodline purge. Darui answered. I also heard that Gato took over the wave. And from the last reports it seems that the living conditions have deteriorated greatly. Darui continued after a moment of thought. The genin solemnly nodded before they continued their run. Soon they crossed the border for the wave country, and after an hour of running into the country they came across a mist. Naruto, being the sensor he is, immediately felt chakra in the mist, and made a sign to his sensei, who told him to blow it away. Nodding, Naruto quickly went through hand signs before shouting, "Wind-style great breakthrough." A large torrent of wind escaped his mouth and cleared the mist away. After which the Kumo team jumped into the battle. They saw Kakashi of the Sharingan and Konoha's Red Death take on two former swordsmen of the mist. Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist, and Mangetsu Hazuka, the leader of the seven. "What are Kumo nin doing here?" Mangetsu asked. "I am Darui of the Black Lightning, and we were given a mission request by the bridge builder Tazuna. Since Konoha nin are here, we will be assisting them in this mission," Darui lazily explained as the team from Konoha narrowed their eyes at Tazuna. "Shit, we are now outnumbered by people as strong as us. I think it will be best if we withdraw for now," Zabuza said as Mangetsu nodded before they both disappeared in swirls of water. As Naruto turned his head, he immediately cursed, as in front of him were his former family. Kushina, Yui and Kakashi all looked at him with wide eyes as he stared back blankly. It was a tense silence, after which was broken by Kushina, who said, "Naruto." Naruto stared at the blankly as he inwardly felt his rage surfacing. However, before it could burst, he remembered all the time he had lived through at Kumo before he relaxed. Looking at his former family members, he waved his hand and said, "Yo." Kushina let out a sigh of relief. She half expected Naruto to shout in anger. However, before she could move, she needed to know why he was wearing a Kumo headband. "Sochi, why do you have a Kumo headband on?" Kushina asked as she brought the rest of her team back out of their stupor, making all of them wonder why the son of the Hokage was a Kumo shinobi. Isn't it obvious? I am a ninja under Kumogakure's jurisdiction. Also, don't call me Sochi, I am not your child, Kushina Dono," Naruto boredly answered. "How can you say that I gave birth to you?" she frantically replied. However, before anyone could reply, Darui stepped forward and said, "I suggest you back off. He is not only my student but also the apprentice of the Raikage. I wouldn't try anything if I were you." This got shocked looks from the Konoha nin. Apart from Kakashi, Kushina, and Yui, there were three others. Namely Sasuke Uchiha, his 2-year junior sister Sayuri Uchiha, and a pink-head Sakura Haruno. All had different thoughts. Sensei will flip when he hears this, Kakashi thought. I can't believe that I pushed him far enough that he joined Kumo of all places. Yui thought. Apprentice of a cage, huh? I will beat him and take all his techniques. Sasuke thought. He is kinda cute with those whisker marks and blue eyes. Sayuri thought with a small blush. Sasuke-kun is so cool. Sakura thought. Alright, I think it is best if we return to the client's house so that we can work out a standard operating procedure during the mission. Since all of us want nothing to do with each other, it should work out fine, Naruto said in a matter-of-fact tone, causing both Yui and Kushina to look at him sadly but nod nonetheless. Both the teams made their way towards Tazuna's home, with the Kumo team having surrounded Naruto so as to stop any attempts that the Kumo team may want to make to capture him. Darui cursed himself for not getting Naruto a mask. He somehow knew that the next few months will be very hectic. Soon they arrived at Tazuna's house, where they were greeted by a beautiful brunette woman. "Father, I am so glad you made it. Are you alright?" she asked as she spotted Tazuna. "Yeah, these awesome ninjas from Konoha and Kumo rescued me." Tazuna entered the home with the ninjas following. The Kumo team sat down in a corner behind their sensei, with Konoha taking the opposite seat. As soon as they sat down, Naruto unsealed a few card games and began to play them with his genin teammates, leaving all the diplomatic matters to their sensei. Darui sighed at his student's laid-back attitude before his gaze hardened, and he turned to the Konoha team and said, "So how do you suggest we do the guarding?" "I believe that one of us will guard Tazuna during the day while the others train the genin to face for the upcoming attack." Kakashi spoke, with the other jonin nodding. The room was then silent except the usual game-playing sounds from the Kumo genin. The silence was broken when Yui looked at Naruto and said, "Ni-san, will you come back home after this mission?" "Of course, I will be returning to my home at Kumo after this mission is over. We have been out of it for way too long now," Naruto casually replied as he won yet another game versus his teammates. "But that place isn't your home. Your home is with us at Konoha." What did they do that you actually joined them? Kushina asked as she shouted. Home is not where you are born, Kushina Dono. It is a place where you are loved, and being honest, I don't remember Konoha giving me even a speck of love. Now I won't be discussing this topic anymore. I have moved on. Naruto said with a tone of finality as he stood up and went to the roof. Kushina and Yui tried to follow but were stopped by Darui, who said, Do you really wish to go on war with Kumo? Naruto is a very important figure at Kumo. He holds one of our summoning contracts and is our seal's master. Trying anything will lead to war. Both Yui and Kushina looked down dejectedly. They did not see a way in which they could get Naruto back without risking an all-out war with the only hidden village that had the same strength as them. Unbeknownst to all of them, Sayuri had slipped past the door and had followed Naruto to the roof. The young Uchiha had found him laying on the roof. He was staring at the moon and had a serene expression on his face. Sayuri immediately saw through it as a mask. She recognized it as she herself often a mask on to save her the unnecessary trouble in the village. However, before she could say anything, Naruto spoke up and said, What are you doing here, Kunoichi-san? I was here to see why you rejected a chance to get back with your family. I lost mine and would give anything to have them back. So tell me why to reject them. Sayuri said in a sad yet angry voice. Simple, because they abandoned and neglected me. I have no reason to come back to them when all my loved ones are at Kumo. Also, I am sorry about your clan. Naruto said without looking at her. Sayuri didn't say anything but nodded nonetheless before leaving. Soon Naruto felt two arms snake around him. He did not turn as he knew exactly who it was. He then in one swift motion bought the girl behind him in front him and warped his arms around her. How do you always know it's me? Yugito asked with a pout. Simple, my heart beats a little faster every time you get close to me. Naruto answered with a smile before he kissed Yugito, who accepted the kiss gratefully before returning it completely. They stayed in the position for a few minutes before heading back into the house. The next morning. The 7 genin were standing with Kushina and Kakashi. Darui was the one who was guarding Tazuna today. Alright, so we will be climbing trees without hands. How will we do that, sensei? Yui asked. Naruto then said, he means it like this. He then moved and casually walked the tree as if it was nothing, causing the rest of the genins to widen their eyes. Looking at their reactions, Naruto sighed and said, it's just a chakra control exercise. Channel it on your feet and walk up the tree. Too less and you slip of. Too much you break the tree bark. That's right. Though I am surprised that they taught you this move as a genin. Kakashi said. Oh, I am genin only by rank. Strength and skill wise I'd say I am around low jonin level. Naruto casually said. Everyone's eyes widened with all of them except the Kumo pair having thoughts on the blonde. Sochi, how much did you work these past years? Kushina thought as she felt tears well up in her eyes. Ni-san is that strong. Yui thought. PFT, so what if he is low jonin, I will be easily able to defeat him. Sasuke thought. Ni-san is so going to challenge him. Sayuri thought. Oi, fight me. Sasuke said as he pointed at Naruto. Naruto looked at him blankly before jumping down and releasing his seals. He then used his mid-jonin level pace to catch Sasuke off guard and pin him on the ground with a kunai on his throat. I win. Naruto said as he released Sasuke and walked off. Sasuke, however, did not take kindly to the humiliation and went through hand signs before shouting, Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. Naruto on the other hand went through his own seals before shouting, Earth style, Mud Wall Jutsu. A wall of earth emerged from the ground and stopped the fireball. Naruto then coldly looked over to Kakashi and Kushina before saying, I suggest you two keep your genin on a leash. What he did right now was nothing short of an act of war. Kakashi didn't react and disappeared in a burst of speed before he reappeared behind Sasuke and knocked him out cold. Kushina was about to say something but Naruto beat her to it and said, and you want me to come back to Konoha? Nothing has changed there, it will still the scum it has been. Will of fire. Shadaime and Nadaime will be rolling in their graves if they knew what the village had become. He then turned around before walking of deep into the forest, leaving a crying Kushina, a teary Yui, a regretful Kakashi and a screaming Sakura. Time skip dinner. All of the nin were sitting and having dinner that had been made by Tsunami. All was fine and small talk was going strongly. 3 of 4 females in the Konoha team were subtly eyeing Naruto. 2 with sadness and 1 with curiosity. Suddenly Inari, the grandson of Tazuna, stood up and shouted, "Why do you train? In the end you will be killed by Gato." "Hey, as if some untrained midget can defeat a ninja." Yui hotly answered. "What do you know about suffering? You must have lived a pampered life." Inari shouted back. "Why, you little," Yui said, and was about to pounce when Naruto spoke and in an older brotherly scolding voice said, Now Yui, that's no way for a lady to act." The said girl blushed in embarrassment before nodding meekly. "As for you, Inari, there are always people may have suffered more than you. For example, look at this." Naruto said before he removed his shirt and revealed a large number of scars. Everyone's eyes widened at them. Even Yugito, she had never seen these and made a mental note to confront Naruto later on. "I got most of these scars when I hurt myself as a kid. My parents completely ignored me, which was why they never healed properly. On my 6th birthday, the rest of the villagers kidnapped me before knocking me out and throwing me into a raging river. I got my other scars from there. I would have surely died had it not been for my sensei here. He found me near the coast of the river, an inch away from death, and took me with him. I have grown there training as hard as I can so that I can protect me and my loved ones in the future." Naruto calmly spoke as he regaled his tale to the youngster in front of him. The Konoha nin swallowed hard. They knew about some things that happened to Naruto but didn't expect them to be so severe. Yui, Kushina, Tsunami, Sayuri and Yugito were all crying. Darui and Kakashi both had blank looks on their faces. Whereas Atsui had an uncharacteristically solemn look on his face. Inari felt his emotions bubbling as he shakily said, "TTT, then what should I do?" Naruto patted the boy's head and said, "Move on, kid. Life is full of opportunities. Take advantage of that and do something about it. It will be a slow step, but results will be assured if you keep at it." Naruto then stood up before leaving, saying, "I am going to mediate this conversation, brought out some bad memories." Darui nodded in acceptance. The others tried to follow him but were stopped by Darui, who said that he needed time for himself. After a while, Sayuri went out and went to find Naruto in order to find out about a thought that was plaguing her mind. After a few moments, she found him mediating in the middle of a clearing in the forest. Before she could speak, Naruto said, "Akunoichi-san, how can I help you again? You seem to like following me whenever I leave a room. Why is that?" Sayuri flushed before sputtering refusals at his assessment. After she calmed down, she asked, "Why do you not want revenge on the people who hurt you? Me and brother both have made it our life goal to hunt the one who killed our families. But you aren't even showing an ounce of hate towards those people. Why?" "Oh, I hate them all right. I just know that they aren't even worth my time. I will just be wasting my time on them. And too, revenge is a dangerous road. Even if you kill the perpetrator, the cycle won't end and you will end up dead at the hands of someone who wants to take revenge for the perpetrator." Naruto sagely answered, "But he was our older brother who killed our whole clan. How can you expect us to forgive him?" Sayuri yelled. "Tell me, who did you trust in your clan the most before the incident?" asked Naruto. "My brother Itachi," Sayuri whispered. "Who did you love the most?" asked Naruto. "Itachi," she replied. "Now tell me, who did he not kill on that day?" Naruto continued. "Me and brother Sasuke," she replied, this time a little longer. "From what you said, the three of you had a near unbreakable bond. And he didn't kill the two of you. But what I think is that he just couldn't bring himself to kill you," Naruto stated. "That's a lie. He told us to hate him and get his power and then come fight him," she yelled in frustration. "To me, that sounded like he wanted you to kill him so that you'd be seen as heroes who took out an undeniably strong rogue nin. By the looks of that, he was willing to sacrifice himself to ensure you both had better futures." Naruto once again spoke in the same calm tone. Now Sayuri was confused. How was this stranger who didn't know her or her family be able to define Itachi so well? Along with the fact the way he talked about Itachi made it seem like he knew Itachi for years. "How do you know Itachi?" she asked him through gritted teeth. "I don't. I just based my questions and answers over what you told me about him. Now I suggest you return. I am sure you have lot to think about on," Naruto said with a dismissive wave of the hand. As soon as she left, Naruto returned to mediate before he said, "Why don't you come out, Kakashi Dono? I wanted to see what my student wanted from you." and wanted to thank you. You may have stopped her from going down a path of destruction. Kakashi lazily answered as he stepped into the clearing. I see you are welcome, Naruto answered. It was after a few minutes that Kakashi spoke up and said, Naruto, I am sorry. I was one of the ANBUs who were tasked to look after you. I shouldn't have let you out of my sight on that day. Think nothing of it. It happened in the past, and thinking back, I wouldn't change anything. I found my real home thanks to that. Naruto replied in an emotionless tone. Kakashi flinched at that before he said, Naruto, please come back. Sensei misses you. The village has changed. I am sorry, Kakashi Dono, but I have no intention to betray my family back at my home in Kumo. Also, you seem to forget I don't fall under the Hokage anymore. I am a Kumo shinobi under the Raikage's jurisdiction. So until he doesn't send me to Konoha, I won't return. Naruto answered with a tone of finality. Kakashi sighed and had started leaving before Naruto said, though if it helps, you should know I looked up to you and still do as an older brother. You technically were among the 2 or 3 people who actually spent time with me. Kakashi gave him a genuine smile before hugging Naruto, which he returned wholeheartedly. Kakashi then ruffled Naruto's head and asked, Naruto, I want to ask you, are you happy at Kumo? Do they force you to do anything you don't want to? I am very happy there, Kakani. I am treated very well and with respect. More than that, I have found both the love of a parent and the love of my life over there. And no, they didn't force me into doing anything. Naruto happily answered. Very well then. I won't stop force you into coming back. As long as you are happy, I am okay with it. Kakashi said as he left the clearing. Naruto sighed before he opened his eyes. However, they didn't have the usual warm look in them. He had felt the chakras of the citizens of the Wave Village. Now he was going to exact revenge. He got up before he disappeared in a burst of pace towards north. After 40 minutes of running, he reached a mansion that had a large number of civilian-level chakra signatures. Some 50 meters from the mansion was a warehouse that had 2 Jonin-level signatures and 2 Chunin-level ones. Seems like that is the place where Zabuza and his team are staying. Better get this over with completely. Naruto thought. Naruto then quickly went through the required hand signs before saying, Summoning Jutsu Shadow Serpents. In a poof, several large shadow serpents appeared. The one in the front looked at Naruto and asked, Naruto-sama, why have you summoned us? Pretty simple, Jin. I want you to go into that mansion and kill everyone in. They are bandits who steal from others. And kidnap women before raping them. Naruto explained to Jin, whose face went from confusion to rage. Nodding, he looked at his comrades before all of them disappeared into the ground. Naruto then flashed a couple of silencing seals and a few basic barrier seals that stopped the noise bandits would make and would stop them from escaping. It was some 15 minutes later that the serpents returned. After which Naruto released the seals. The serpents had bought in Gato's head and a couple of documents. The documents contained the payment for Zabuza's crew. Naruto sealed Gato's head before he moved to the warehouse and threw a kunai with the payment. After that, he patiently waited outside. It was only a few moments later that both Zabuza and Mangetsu appeared and spotted him. It was then that Zabuza spoke and said, What does this mean, Gaki? I have killed Gato and all his minions inside that mansion. I found the money he owed you guys and gave it you as a sign of good faith. And I wanted to ask, will you leave instead of attacking the bridge builder like you intended to? Naruto asked. Yeah, sure, we have gotten what we wanted. We will be leaving then. Mangetsu answered as he picked up his sword and signaled to the other 3, who nodded, and the group of 4 then left. Naruto then sighed before he activated his lightning armor and raced back towards Tazuna's home. As soon as it came within sights, Naruto deactivated his jutsu before calmly entering the room where everyone was sitting. Naruto then spoke and said, Gato is dead and our enemies have left after they had gotten what they wanted. I had my summons take care of Gato and his cronies before giving the Mist Nin the money they were owed. After receiving what they needed, they left. We should have no problem with the bridge. Naruto answered as he sat back down and threw his sensei a storage scroll which turned out to have Gato's head inside it. Everyone was surprised Naruto had single-handedly taken care of the whole mission. Just then Tazuna came up to Naruto and said, Thank you so much. Is there anything this country can do to make it up to you? You could set up a trade agreement with us when the bridge is complete and the wave is back standing on its feet. Naruto said with a smile. Tazuna smiled before nodding. Since he was kind of a leader figure, he decided to set up trade agreements with both Konaha and Kumo. Both helped in the liberation in one way or another. Darui smiled at his student's maturity. He had not only become a hero for the people but had also managed to secure a very strategic trading position for the village. He would definitely be a good Kage in the future. Kushina could only smile sadly. She couldn't help but feel proud of the ninja he had grown up to be. She only hoped that Kumo would be willing to negotiate a deal with Konoha that would allow them to come and occasionally speak with Naruto or sometimes go and perform missions with him. Sasuke was seething in anger. Someone clanless unknown had scooped up and taken all the credit that he and Uchiha should have. He vowed that he would one day beat the blonde in front of him. It was after all known that Uchiha Sasuke was not one to forget humiliation of any kind. Sayuri was still mentally confused since her talk with Naruto earlier. She did not know what to think. She had joined the academy early just so that she could had her revenge earlier. But Naruto's word made her question her very purpose and made her think if Itachi really did just kill for power. Yui was internally berating herself and her parents. It was clear that he was not a prankster, just a kid who wanted attention when he was younger. Looking at the power and confidence he radiated, she couldn't help but figure out one thing. Her brother was a prodigy in a true sense of the word. He was already performing Jonin-level missions on his own. She may be strong in her own right, but she knew currently he was in a league of his. Everyone nodded before going to sleep. The next day the genin were given time off since nearly all the threats in the mission had been neutralized. Atsui was swimming in the river. Sasuke was training in the forest. Sakura was watching him while Yui and Sayuri were following Naruto into the wave village. While Yugito was sleeping, Naruto's heart broke as he saw the condition the village was in. Kids on the streets with ragged clothing. It was too much for him to handle. He was about to turn and leave when he felt a tug on his pants. Looking down, he saw a girl barely around 3 years of age looking up at him with hope in her eyes. Naruto crouched down and said, "Hello little one, how can I help you? Can you give me some money? I haven't eaten anything in a week." The girl said, "How about I take you out to eat?" Naruto said as the girl nodded. He then went to the best-looking restaurant in the area and fed the girl with his own 2 hands. After they were finished, Naruto set the girl on his lap and said, "Now sweetie, where are your parents? And what is your name?" "My name is Arena. My parents left me 3 months ago and didn't come back. They said I was a burden. Are you going to leave me as well?" Arena asked as she started tearing up. "No, Eri-chan. I will never abandon you. How about you come back with me to my village? I will take care of you." "How does that sound?" Naruto asked with a smile. Arena teared up and hugged Naruto tightly. Naruto then got up and said, "Let's go Eri-chan, we need to get back to my team." "Hi to san." Arena replied as she hugged Naruto. As they walked, Naruto noticed that Arena was looking at a necklace in a nearby store. He set her down and said, "Eri-chan, close your eyes and wait for a couple of seconds, I will be right back." Naruto soon came back and tied the necklace around Arena's neck before saying, "You can open your eyes, Eri-chan." She saw the necklace before gasping and looking at Naruto, who smiled and said, "I saw you looking at it and got it for you." "To-san," Arena said as she launched herself at Naruto, who picked her up as he chuckled and kept her on his shoulders before leaving and returning. Yui and Sayuri, who were spying from afar, couldn't help gush at the adorable moment in front of them. Back at the house, Naruto explained the whole situation to his teammates. Yugito immediately accepted little Arena and agreed to become her mother-like figure, whereas Atsui took the role of an uncle. Darui sighed as the whole thing was troublesome and he would have to explain the whole thing to the Raikage. The next 2 weeks went by relatively normal. Kushina and Yui tried to talk to Naruto, but he wouldn't even give them a second of his time. Naruto's part in the mission was soon revealed to the locals and he was seen as hero. Because of that, he had developed a second fan club of his. Kakashi joked and said that in the end he may have a fan club in all of the elemental nations. Naruto shuddered at his older brother's remark and secretly prayed that it never came into being. After that, both teams returned to their respective villages. Well, that mission went better than expected. Yugito said as they jumped from tree to tree. "You can say that again, I half expected them to do something foolish and attempt to capture me." Naruto said as he jumped with Arena on his back. Definitely, though, I do believe that we will be facing some major headaches in the coming days. The Yondaime won't rest until he finds out a way in which he will be able to get closer to you. Specifically after seeing the reaction of Kushina Dono. Darui said, I don't really care what they do. My loyalty is and always will be with Kumo. Nothing is going to change that, and if Konoha want to fight, I will show them why not to mess with us. Naruto said in strong voice. Arena chose to wake up at this moment and said, "To-san, why to hate Konoha so much? I will tell you when you are older, Eri-chan. Now you should return to sleeping, after all it's still a few ways before we reach home." Naruto replied to her, which caused her to pout cutely but nonetheless nod before dozing off. With Konoha Group. Asterisk. The team from Konoha rushed back without a break and were back in Konoha by the end of the day. As soon as they arrived, Kushina sent the genin home before she and Kakashi both raced towards the Hokage Tower. Kushina didn't waste a moment and burst into Minato's office, where he was currently having a meeting with Jiraiya and Hiruzen relating to an organization called Atatsuki. Taking the group by surprise, Kushina began her incoherent shouting. Minato sighed before he got up and shook Kushina, calming her down before saying, "Now Kushina, what is wrong?" "We found Naruto. He was a Kumo genin from a team that assisted us in the mission." Kushina gasped out as all the remaining participants apart from Kakashi widened their eyes in shock. Minato sat back down before he started thinking of a few scenarios. The first idea he had was that Kumo must have used a loyalty seal on him, but his thoughts were cut off when Kakashi said, "Sensei, I know what you are thinking. Kumo has no seal on him. He is a level 10 master on his own, so I doubt a seal could be placed on him. He is there on his own will and is an important figure there. If what Darui of the Black Lightning said was true, he is the apprentice of Yatsuki the Yondaime Raikage and is among the favored candidates to become the Raikage when I steps down." Minato frowned as he bit his lip. Considering his status and skills, it was almost confirmed that Kumo won't give him up without a fight, and since both the villages were around equal in strength, it may well lead to a great shinobi war. And he may have to fight against his son. On the other side of the room, Hiruzen gave a sigh of relief. At least his grandson was alive. And from what Kakashi had said, he seemed to be quite a strong shinobi for his age. Hiruzen let a proud smile make its way onto his face. He really hoped that Naruto would come to the village for the Chunin exams. God, he missed that bright ball of sunshine. Jiraiya frowned. He hadn't been able to invade the territory surrounding Kumo because of a very good barrier seal. If Naruto was indeed a seal master, he was at the very least at Jiraiya's level. This caused his frown to deepen. If Naruto wanted, he could easily beat someone like Yui, since a single double suppressing seal would be enough to decapitate her. All of them were brought out of their stupor when Kushina said, "So what are we going to do, Minato-kun?" Minato thought for a few moments before saying, "I think it's best to prepare for now. Sensei, I want you to bring both Orochimaru, yes he is good in the FIC, and Tsunade back. We need a good show of strength. After that I will send a letter asking for an alliance. I am afraid that it is the only way we may be able to see Naruto." Jiraiya nodded before jumping out the window. Hiruzen sat down before thinking and saying, "What are you planning, Hokage-sama?" "A political marriage. I will discuss it with the clans to see if any one of their girls is available. We will offer a marriage to Naruto. If it goes through, not only will we have a good treaty with Kumo, but will also tie Naruto close to us." Minato replied as silence ensued in the room. Hiruzen stood up and was about to leave when Minato stopped him and said, "What do you think, Sarutobi-sama? I think you are playing a very dangerous game here, Hokage Dono. You should think before taking hasty steps." Hiruzen answered before he left the room. Kushina then started tearing up a little and said, "He hates us. He called me Kushina Dono and didn't even acknowledge us. It is our mistake, Kushi-chan. Though what we can do is keep at it until he forgives us." Minato answered as he hugged his wife. Kumo. After a whole 2 days of traveling, Team 9 finally made it back to the village and then went to the Raikage office to report of their missions. As soon as they entered, I looked up and smiled before he became confused as he saw little Arena in Naruto's arms. Darui sighed before saying, "Missions accomplished, boss. Document delivered. Bandits terminated and protecting the bridge builder also done." "That's good, Darui. Now who is that girl and did anything happen with the Konoha team over there?" I curiously asked. "I found her on the streets at the wave. It turns out her parents were just as big bastards as mine were. They abandoned her 1 month ago. I decided to adopt her and raise her as my own daughter. Naruto answered with a smile. Very well, then I will get the paperwork ready for her adoption and the civilian status. Am I right to presume that you will be training her in the way of the ninja when she grows older? Asked I. Yes, I intend to. However, not for another 3 or 4 years. I want her to first forget about those treacherous bastards and get a good amount of memories a baby should have before starting her training. Naruto answered as he looked at Arena with a loving smile. I smiled and teasingly said, well, that's good also, it gives both you and Yugito parenting practice. Gigi, Raikage-sama. Both the teens shouted in exasperation. I chuckled in a good-natured way before he signaled the genin of Team 9 to leave while giving them a week of rest. Alright then, Darui, anything to note with the Konoha team? I asked. I regret not making Naruto wear a mask. The Konoha team had Kushina Namakazi and Kakashi Hatake as their senseis. They immediately tried to talk to Naruto, but he used his cool side and played all of them down. The only thing we need to be careful of is the next few meetings that Konoha will be sending our way. Darui answered with a long sigh. Indeed, and we will be ready. They can offer us anything they want by Akugan, the Sharingan I want, except going into a treaty with a village that harms kids. I answered. Silence ensued and neither men broke it. Opting to think instead. Mangetsu Hazuka. Purpose of visiting is to meet with the Raikage. Mangetsu answered. What do want to talk about? Asked the Chunin. I am sorry, that is something I can only tell the Raikage. Mangetsu answered. Very well, we will have a few Anbu lead you to the office. However, remember, any funny business and we won't be responsible. The Chunin warned as he called the Anbu. That is agreeable, Mangetsu said as he followed the Anbu to the Raikage tower. After a few minutes of walking, Mangetsu was sitting in the Raikage office as he sat across I, who had an impassive face on. So what can I do for the second coming of the devil? Asked I. Ah yes, you see, most of the remain NG7 swordsmen of the mist have joined up with rebels in the bloodline purge. We would like to request help in the war. Mangetsu explained. That is all well and good, but what does Kumo get if it helps you in this war? I asked. We know that Kumo has a shortage of bloodlines. If and when we win the war, we will be willing to send over 3 different bloodlines over to you to start on. Along with that, we would also form an alliance with Kumo that would be cemented by a political marriage with any shinobi of your choosing. Mangetsu stated as I considered the offer before he nodded. Very well, Kumo will assist you. I will be sending 3 of our strongest jonin along with their genin teams. Which are our strongest product in recent years? I said, to which Mangetsu nodded. I then called his secretary and said, Mabui, get me Team Darui, Team B and Team C. Mabui nodded before leaving the room and signaling the Anbu to get them. All 3 teams appeared in the room after 5 minutes. As soon as he entered, B said, what do you need us for, bro? The rebels of the mist have asked for our assistance in their civil war and I have agreed to help them. I want you 3 LMG with your genin teams to assist in the war. Make sure you win it. I said with a smirk. Everyone nodded before Darui said, alright people, start packing, we gather at the gate in 1 hour. The genin nodded before leaving. At his home, Naruto had informed Arena that he was leaving for a mission and expected her to behave and be good girl with Mabui until he came back. He promised her to bring her a few gifts. Arena, however, hugged him tightly and made him promise that he would come back alive. He promised that both he and Yugito would return and they would be a family again. An hour later, all 3 teams were ready and the whole group then left with Mangetsu leading them to the rebel forces headquarters. It was a day of traveling, after which they finally made it to the lightning water border and crossed it. The next morning, after an hour of running, they came across a dense mist in which Naruto got lost. Damn, where did everyone go? Naruto thought as he tried to feel the chakra signatures of the Kumo group, but to no avail. Suddenly he heard the voices of a battle taking place. Rushing towards the sound, he found 3 mist nin attacking a solitary kunoichi who was losing the fight. Naruto was surprised when he saw the girl use not 1 but 2 bloodlines. The mist nin, however, using their numerical advantage, were pushing her back. Just as a critical strike was about to hit her, Naruto activated his lightning armor and in a flash was in front of the kunoichi. He unsealed his sword and in a single slash caused the attacking nin to back away. Who are you and what are you doing in the mist's territory? One of the nin asked. Hei is saving my princess, too much to ask. I will ask you to leave Mist Nin or I will kill you. Naruto warned as he threatening raised his sword. Hey, as if a kid like you can do something to us. One of the nin sneered. They then tried to move but found themselves unable to. Looking at their feet, they found themselves to be held by shards of black crystal that were growing out of the water. Before they could react, Naruto was in front of them and in a single swipe he cut the head of all three Mist Nin. Naruto then turned to the girl. Now close to her, he saw that she was around his age and had auburn-colored hair. She wore a green shirt and had her hair made into a ribbon. Naruto blushed a bit as he saw her. She was definitely among the prettiest girl he had ever seen. Who are you? The girl asked. Naruto Uzumaki from Kumo. Here on a mission to assist in the rebels in the civil war. I was separated from my group and ended up here. Now mind me asking, who are you? Naruto asked. The girl was no better as she blushed when she saw Naruto's muscular frame replied. My name is Mai Terumi, the sister of the leader of the rebels. I was returning from a mission when I was ambushed. Thank you for saving me. You could thank me by leading me back to headquarters. My team will be worried. Naruto said as Mai nodded before motioning Naruto to follow her. As then ran, Mai couldn't help but think about a few things. One was, how was an Uzumaki blonde? From what she knew, they were all crimson red heads. 2. If he was an Uzumaki, what was he doing in Kumo? Last she knew was that Uzuhio was destroyed by a combined effort from Kumo and Iwa. 3. Why was he feeling so warm in his presence? He was the first person who hadn't made fun of her and actually blushed, even if just a little, by looking at her. So she decided to ask him. If you don't mind, can I ask you a few questions? Go right ahead, Haim. Naruto cheerfully replied. He was glad that he was required to go through the CRA. He could have girls without cheating on Yugito, as she would know of whoever was to be added. She had only allowed it after Naruto had informed the council that he would only marry if he loved the girl in question and she loved him in change. Why are you blonde? I thought all Uzumakis were redheads. Mai asked. Oh, that's pretty simple. My dad was a blonde. I think I got his genes more than my mom's. Dadbeo. Naruto answered before he face-palmed. He still hadn't been able to rid himself of his verbal tick. Oh, that makes sense. Also, what are you doing at Kumo? Aren't Konaha and Uzumakis the ones in an alliance? Mai asked. Oh, I was from Konaha, but for some reason one day I was beaten to a pulp and thrown into a river. My sensei from Kumo found me in a near-death state before he carried me back and I joined Kumo. Anything else? Naruto asked. No, that's all. Mai replied before they soon reached the gates of a large camp. At the gates, the guards soon recognized Mai and asked, Mai, where were you? Mai-sama has been worried. I am sorry, I was attacked by trash and nearly killed. Thankfully he was there to save me. Mai said as pointed at Naruto. Now excuse us, we need to go see Nisan. Mai said. She then took his hand and pulled him along with her. Soon they reached the biggest tent where it seemed like a meeting was going on. Mai and Naruto entered and found that Mai was indeed in a meeting with the rest of the Kumo group. Hey Nisan. Mai said as Mai smiled at her. Naruto on the other hand was glommed up by Yugito, who worriedly asked, where were you? You aren't hurt, right? Naruto chuckled before tapping her nose and saying, I am fine, just got a little strayed before I rescued Mai over there from 3 Mist Nin before she guided me here. I see, I would like to thank you for that, Naruto-san. Mai said. Oh, it's of no consequence, Mai-sama. I was merely doing what any honorable person would have done. But I need to ask, what will be our battle plan against the Mizukage? Asked Naruto. Why, yes. The current Mizukage had a total of 19 fortresses. After fighting the last couple of years, we have managed to capture 9 of them. But recent LT security around them has tightened many-fold, which has made it impossible for us to capture more of them, which is why we called for your help. Mai explained. Naruto, what do you think we should do? Darui curiously asked. Everyone knew how big of a prodigy Naruto was and were curious to see what his genius would do to win the war. If my plan is successful, then we should have control over 7 or 8 more fortresses by the end of this month. Naruto said after he thought for a few minutes. Oh, I think you are underestimating us if you think we haven't tried anything. Mai said in an irritated voice. Naruto smirked and asked, do you have a seal master here? Mai shook her head, not knowing where it was going. Do you know of the jutsu called the shadow clones? Naruto asked, his smirk growing slyly. Again Mei shook her head and sighed. Well, that is what we are going to do. I am a seal master and know the shadow clones. The plan is simple. My clone will infiltrate a fortress, plant explosive seals of my personal creation. This will disable the defense of the fortress, giving us a chance to attack and take over. It will take me a while to get the seals ready, but after they are done it should all be game. Naruto explained. The Jonin, both the rebels and Kumo's senseis, nodded in agreement. It was a very good plan. Mai then spoke up and asked, what happens if the Yugura appears? He has the Sanbi within him as well. Don't worry bro, if 3-0 comes out I-8-0 will tear him down yo. B rapped as he moved his hands in a freaking manner. The Kumo nin all sighed in exasperation while the rebel nin were all blinking. We are sorry, he is always like that. Darui said. After that all the genin left to roam the camp. Naruto went on his own to try and train for a new move. He could proficiently use the lightning armor but felt that it was now time to send it up to the next level. Hey guys, I am gonna go off on my own. I will see you guys tonight, don't follow me. He said before jumping off. As he left, Yugito sighed and Atsui cursed. Seeing this, Mai asked, what's the matter? It's Naruto, he is about to do something extremely cool but foolishly dangerous. Samui answered in monotone. Oh, should we spy on him then? Mai asked in a curious voice. It won't work since he is a censor. And two, he will tell us what it is later on, so it's no point trying to find it out. One of the genin, Alexa from C's team, answered. So tell me about Naruto, what kind of guy is he? Asked Mai. Why do you want to know? Yugito asked with narrowed eyes. Well, he did save my life and I may be attracted to him. So I wanted to know about him. Mai answered. Back off girlfriend Naruto-kun is mine, nearly every female Kumo genin said at the same time. I don't think so. According to him, he is the last member of the Uzumaki clan, so that automatically puts him in a CRA. He will have to take several wives to restore his clan. Mai said with a smirk as the remaining Kumo genin grumbled, knowing she was right. With Naruto. Asterisk. Naruto stood alone in a clearing. He took a deep breath in before activating his lightning armor. After calming himself into the armor, he began channeling his black lightning. Soon his usual calm blue in the armor was replaced by a frantic black. He then put all of his focus into maintaining the black lightning armor for as long as he could. Just when he was about to lose control, he decided to give a speed check and rushed forward to hit a tree. It was over in a flash of black. The tree was in two pieces and Naruto was standing behind it, breathing heavily. He grinned to himself. He knew one thing. The black lightning armor was very much possible. All he needed was to get the next exercise of black lightning manipulation down. He then crossed his fingers and created 300 clones. He said to them, all right guys, let's do this. 250 of you on black lightning manipulation. 50 of you onto the seals we will need in 1 month. The clones nodded before setting up to work. From afar, Darui and B were watching the blonde maelstrom with wide eyes. He really is a genius. To be able to create and maintain a black lightning armor even if just for a few minutes is nothing short of amazing. Isn't it? B asked, his voice unnaturally serious for once. I agree. He will make an amazing Raikage one day. If he manages to master the black lightning armor by the end of this mission, he will be known around the elemental nations as the Black Flash of Kumo. Darui replied. Aren't you going to give him advice on the third and arguable the hardest step in black lightning manipulation? B asked. No, he is already going way too fast. Using those clones he will be done by the end of the month. Aren't you going to give him any more chakra to increase the number of clones he can produce? Darui asked back. No, I want him to learn to be self-dependent but willing to accept help when the situation requires it. It's my part in the upbringing of our upcoming Raikage. B answered with a grin. That is an important quality. Darui said as he nodded his head in agreement. Both of them then fell silent as they watched Naruto up his resistance seals to level 5. He then struggled to move around the clearing. Both Darui and B had only one thought at that moment. Why do you try so hard, Naruto? Kids your age don't put their bodies on the line like you do. Unbeknownst to them, after the encounter with his family, his resolve to grow stronger had flared up again. There was no way in hell he would forgive them or let them use him again. Naruto was panting in the clearing he was using to train. Currently he was extremely pissed considering the fact that there was yet another Konoha team here. It seemed Zabuza had convinced the Yondaime to send a team from Konoha TP help in the exchange of a few silent killing techniques. The reason Naruto was pissed was because the Jonin that Konoha sent was Might Guy, who constantly shouted that it was unyouthful of Naruto to stay away from home. Naruto, because of mission grounds, let his senseis handle any diplomatic matters while he trained and created the seals they would need. He suddenly straightened up as he felt a presence behind him and said, "Come on out, I know you are there." As he finished, Neji Hyuga, a genin from the Konoha team, stepped into the clearing with a sneer plastered on his face. Seeing him, Naruto sighed a bit. Neji had been trying to get under his skin ever since they met. Naruto, however, kept his control in check as he had no intention of endangering the mission. "So what do you want, Hyuga? You will talk to me with respect, Kumo nin." Neji snarled, but Naruto had enough. "I've got no reason to. I am stronger than you and have way more respect than you do. So back off and don't endanger my mission. Or else," Naruto stated in a cold voice. "Or else what? You'll take my eyes to Kumo. Please, the branch seal will destroy them before you get the chance." Neji scoffed but soon turned slightly fearful when he saw Naruto's smile. "In case you forgot, Hyuga, I am a level 10 seals master in Uzumaki seal arts. And your seal is a deviant from an Uzumaki seal. It will take me 5 minutes to remove it and take your eyes. So don't tempt me," Naruto said. Neji slightly backed away before he turned and left the clearing. Naruto then shooshined away for the final meeting between the rebels before they put his plan into action. His seals were ready and now the only thing left was execution. Entering the meeting hall, he moved in and sat down with the rest of the Kumo contingent and waited for the others to appear. Soon the main rebel leaders appeared along with the Konoha team and the meeting began. "So everything is ready, I presume?" Mei asked. "It is. My clones are planting the seals as we speak. We should be able to attack tomorrow night," Naruto answered. "So me, Zabuza and Mangetsu will be leading our personal groups to 3 different fortresses. One will be taken by Konoha. And what about you guys?" asked Mei. "We will be taking 4 of them. I will be taking 1 solo, so don't worry about manpower," Naruto calmly said. The Kumo contingent sighed. They knew Naruto was going to go through his very cool but foolish routine and knew they couldn't stop him. Mei looked the Kumo Jonin, who merely nodded in response. The plan was set and now they were going to go on a full frontal assault. The next day, all the groups were ready and had left. Just as Naruto was about to leave, he was stopped by Mai and Haku, 2 girls he had grown considerably close to over the last month. He did find them attractive and he wouldn't mind bringing the 2 of them into his life. What stopped him was that he didn't want to force himself on them. It was a bonus that Yugito liked the duo. "What's wrong, Mai-chan, Haku-chan?" Naruto said as he saw them. Both of them looked at each other before Mai stepped forward and kissed Naruto square on the lips, leaving Naruto stunned. His confusion only grew when Haku stepped forward and did the same. Naruto stood there stunned as Haku and Mai chuckled at his frozen expression. "What was that all about?" Naruto asked with a dumbfounded expression. "Well, Naruto-kun, truth be told, both of us fell for you. You are sweet, caring, not a pervert, strong and honorable. You actually won us over. We already have talked to Yugito and she doesn't mind if we join your CRA," Mai said with a blush as Haku nodded with her cheeks painted pink. "Wow, I am one lucky bastard. I guess you guys came here to tell me to be careful, right? If yes, don't worry, I wouldn't keep my Nakoheim, Hyoheim, and Yoheim waiting. See you on the other side," Naruto said as he activated his lightning armor and flashed away. As soon as Naruto reached position, he spoke through a radio and said, "Black crystal in position, over." A few minutes later he received the following signals. "Octopops in position." B said. "Dull life in position." Darui said. "Rhyme in position." C said. "Lava in position." Mei said. "Dissolving white head in position." "I am going to kill you, brat." Mangetsu said. "Cow man in position." "Kid, prepare for torture." Zabuza growled out. "Team youth in position. Let us get this youthful mission underway." "Alright then, the mission is a go." Fu and Kai. As soon as Naruto said that, at once 8 different fortresses had their defenses broken and all of the rebel forces charged in at once to take over the fortress. There was no specific difficulty for them to overthrow the hold the Mizukage held in these fortresses. The element of surprise along with the sheer firepower of the allies was enough to beat and capture the people guarding the fortresses. Some of the people who escaped all ran away to the remaining 2 fortresses. However, there was one fortress where not even a single mist nin had survived. It was the fortress that Naruto had invaded. The only thing the civilians who had been living inside could see was a black blur that was slicing down on the mist nin, leaving no one alive. Mei had then sent some of her strongest operatives along with a decent number of ninjas to re-establish order in those fortresses. Naruto had immediately rushed into action by creating brand new barrier seals that replaced the old weak ones into near impenetrable ones. Something that Mei was very thankful for. His seals had ensured that even a cage-level shinobi couldn't break them unless they were adept at Uzumaki sealing arts. A week after the takeover, everyone except Naruto was seated in the meeting room to discuss what was to happen next until a chunin bursted into the room and shouted, "Mei-sama, Yugura and his army are here. They've got the village surrounded. Naruto-san has been pushing the army back, but he needs backup." The Kumo contingent along with Mei Mangetsu and Zabuza rushed to Naruto's aid. They were surprised when they found a panting Naruto holding his white blade. He was surrounded by a layer of black lightning, something that caused nearly everyone's eyes to pop out. Specifically Darui and B. They looked around and saw that Naruto was surrounded by bodies and he was facing a scowling Yugura. Feeling the familiar signatures behind him, he said, "My-chan, throw me a soldier pill, while the rest of you go and take out the other nin that are attacking. I will take care of Yugura." Everyone hesitated before following the blonde's instructions. He had completely ignored the rank and had rescued a large number of people by keeping the opposers out. "So shall we continue, Mizuki-san?" asked Naruto as he pointed his sword at Yugura. "You think you can beat me, brat?" Yugura growled at the reason he had almost lost the war. "No, I know I can. All I need is one hit on you and you lose. It doesn't even have to be lethal hit, a mere tap will be enough," Naruto said as he felt his chakra coming back to him courtesy of a food pill. "Oh, and how do you intend to do that?" Yugura said as he released his three-tailed state and got ready to fight. "How about I show you?" Naruto said as he flared his black lightning armor. Both the nins rushed at each other, Naruto using his speed and superior kenjutsu skills while Yugura used his natural water affinity along with his biju to counter it. This continued for a few moments, after which Naruto was pushed back. However, Yugura soon spotted the smirk on Naruto's face and asked, "What are you smiling about, kid? I am about to kill you, you know this." Fuin. Naruto finished with a ram sign and suddenly Yugura felt the gravity on the area increase by tenfold. He wasn't able to move and was now kneeling on the ground as Naruto casually walked up to him before slamming 2 Gyogo Fuins on his biju seal. As soon as he applied the first one, Yugura felt the Sanbis chakra leaving him. The second one completely took away the feeling of having the beast in him. Naruto then noticed a glazed look in Yugura's eyes and was about to kill him when Yugura said, "Wait, what happened? Where am I? Who was that red-eyed man?" Naruto narrowed his eyes at that and instead of killing Yugura, he knocked him out so that Mei could do a little more research on the case. He then applied a suppression seal on Yugura before releasing his gravity seal. He then released his black lightning armor and turned to walk away only to fell unconscious at his second step. The only thing he remembered was seeing the worried faces of Haku and Mai. Both of them immediately rushed to the hospital, letting the rest of the guards take care of Yugura's body. And finally, after a very long struggle, the civil war of the mist had been finally put to the close, with the bloodline rebels coming out on top. Naruto had suffered a severe case of chakra exhaustion and was hence resting. He had yet to wake up. The Konoha team had already collected their payment and had left, while the Kumo contingent stayed to discuss the terms of the treaty. It was decided that Suigetsu, Haku and Mai would be the 3 sent to Kumo. It was mainly due to the fact that a political marriage between Naruto and the 2 girls had been fixed and that Mangetsu wanted his brother to find his own path in life. The treaty was signed and everyone was happy. The only thing left was for Naruto to wake up. Midway to the 4th day, he groaned before waking up. Immediately he heard 3 sets of footsteps and 3 different shouts of, "Naruto-kun." He was glomped by 3 different hugs. Barely opening his eyes, he saw Yugito, Mai and Haku hugging him like their lives depended on it. Naruto then weakly returned the hug. His reserve was nowhere near full and it would take a couple of days for him to get in traveling condition. "So girls, how you doing?" he said, trying to start up a conversation. "You baka, do you how worried we were?" Yugito sobbed as she hugged him. "You idiot, what were you thinking when you decided to take on a whole army on your own? Mai sobbed into his chest. Did you even consider what would have happened to us if something happened to you? Haku whimpered. Naruto sighed before he shifted a little and brought all three of the girls into a tighter hug. He held them all close before softly whispering only loud enough for them to hear. I am really sorry. I didn't want to make you worried. The only thing in my mind was that I had to ensure your safety and keep you guys safe from the upcoming army. And nope, I can't die not before I become the Raikage. You blonde baka. All three girls said at once as he chuckled. Now then, what happened while I was asleep? Asked Naruto. Oh, the war is over. Mai said. Treaty has been agreed and signed. Yugito added. We are going to Kumo as soon as you are healthy. Haku said. What do you mean we? Asked Naruto. Oh, Mai and Haku were a part of the political marriage set up for you to signify the treaty. Suigetsu-kun and Samui are engaged as well. Yugito explained as Naruto let out a shocked whistle. Wow, that was nice. So you girls are okay with this? Asked Naruto. Why wouldn't we be? We are friends and all three of us wholeheartedly love you and you love us. You are already under CRA, so it isn't much of a problem. Mai said with a shrug. Okay then, let's get going. Naruto said as he stood up and was about to leave when Mai, Haku and Yugito pushed him back on TBE bed. Sighing, he nodded before rolling off to sleep.